Good evening, baseball fans. How you doing? How you doing? It's good to be back home. We are live in the home studio, and it feels pretty good to be back in the chair again. And of course, the day I get back from a trip, we get a massive trade. Dylan Cease going to the Padres. Who would have thought this one was going to happen? My goodness. We'll break it down. We'll go over the pieces heading back to the White Sox. We'll go over what this means for the Padres. Big trade. We waited all offseason for this one. What does this mean now for the Yankees, who were also connected to Dylan Cease? What does this mean for the Texas Rangers, who were recently connected with Dylan Cease? What does this mean for Blake Snell? Could this maybe be a domino effect for Jordan Montgomery, perhaps? We're going to break it all down. We're going to talk about some other news as well. JD Martinez, his name is starting to pick up. Lucas Giolito was in the news today. And how you doing, everyone? Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. 200 people to start things off. My camera might be a little off. I just got back from a trip. We went, myself, Jim of Ballcap, Wardy NYM, Giraffe Neck Mark, and Mike of Stark Raving Sports. We all came together for this past week. And we went to some spring training games. We did some content together. We did some live shows. So my camera is a bit adjusted for where we were there. And I think it looks okay. I haven't adjusted it back to the home studio. So I think it looks okay for now. Anyway, how you doing? We got a big trade. And of course, like I said in the intro, it's when I come back from a trip. And it's not that it's when I come back from a trip. It's also, I decided to go to the gym a little earlier because I'm thinking, all right, I haven't been to the gym in a few days. I needed to go, just get back to my sanctuary a little bit. And of course, as I'm warming up for some squats, that's when Dylan Cease gets traded to the Padres. So I'm like, of course this happens. So here we are. We're a little late past the news, but we are going to get into this tonight. Everyone, thank you for stopping by with me tonight. Everyone, if you can, real quick, just hit that like button for me. The algorithm has not been too kind with us lately, so we need to kind of get that going again. The like goal for tonight, and because I had already been planning on doing a live show tonight, so the like goal, as always, we're going to shoot for 200. Here we go. I'm going to put the poll up in the chat. As always, let's see. Hold on one second, everyone. Hold on. Can we get to 200 likes? That is always the poll. And if you are new, if you are just finding me for the first time, think about subscribing down below. We're talking all the baseball news all the time, especially with this season coming up. I will be having a video premiering probably after this stream tonight, so make sure you're on the lookout for that. Everyone, hit that bell. Share the show if you can. Let's get to it here, everyone. Let's get to it. So, obviously, the big news tonight, Dylan Cease heading to the Padres. Jeff Passan was the one to break it, of course. It's always Jeff Passan. When is it not Jeff Passan? So, here we go. For some reason, my stream deck is not working once again. Oh, you know what, actually? Hold on. I think I figured out the fix. Here we go. I figured out the fix the other day. I just unplugged it, and then I plugged it back in. So, let's see if this works. Nope, it does not work. Okay, let's try one more thing. Bear with me, everyone. I'm just getting back, just getting set up and everything. I think we might be good here. Nope, we're not. We got to do this the regular way for tonight. So here we go. Jeff Passan. San Diego Padres are finalizing a trade to acquire right-hander Dylan Cease from the White Sox. So it took a little bit to get the exact pieces heading back. Drew Thorpe was the first one to come out, and then after that, it was Iriarte, and people were thinking, wow, okay, this is kind of a steal for the Padres. The Padres have done it again. They have fleeced another team. Remember, go back the last few years where they've made these trades and it seems like they just get away with highway robbery. And I was thinking they did it again, but then we had a couple more pieces come in. And here was the exact trade. We had Drew Thorpe, Jairo Iriarte, Samuel Zavala, and reliever Steven Wilson. And according to Baseball Trade Values, this is pretty much a fair trade, right? Maybe a little bit extra going to the White Sox in terms of median value. But in the end, my quick reaction to all of this, I think this is a fantastic trade for both sides, right? For the Padres, it was funny coming into this offseason with the Padres because we all knew there were some issues with the payroll and obviously Juan Soto right off the bat. That was the big rumor coming into this offseason. Are the Padres going to unload him? Eventually they did, going to the Yankees. And then they get a piece here in Drew Thorpe now that they can use in this trade to flip over to the White Sox. So it's funny how the Padres have maneuvered through this offseason, unloading Juan Soto, bringing in some international relievers, and now using the rest of that money, maybe not the rest, not fully, but using more of that Juan Soto salary to put towards some needed pitching. And for the Padres now, I mean, when you're looking at this rotation looks quite dandy, if you ask me. So let's pull this up here. You got to remember here with the Padres last year, one issue that they had was depth. That was clearly an issue for them last year, right? You remember going into the season, right? Everyone was high on the Padres last year. And then all of a sudden, Joe Musgrove had an issue coming out of spring training. He was down going into the season. And Yu Darvish, he started having some bumps and bruises as well. And then it felt like right off the bat, the Padres were in trouble heading into the season, and they lacked that stability. And they have really shored that up here this offseason, right? Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, obviously. Remember, they got Michael King back in that trade. And now you got Dylan Cease, and this is a rather dandy starting rotation. I really like the look of this. To me, I think Dylan Cease and Michael King could be some of the biggest X factors in Major League Baseball this year. Because, Yu Darvish, like I said, he's already 37 years old, going to be 38 eventually. Joe Musgrove, he's had his bumps and bruises over the last, few years or so. Even when he was with the Pirates, remember? He was having issues, with the forearm, I believe, the tricep, if I remember correctly. And then last year, he was having issues in the lower half. So I think it's great that they've picked up these guys in Cease and Michael King because it gives them just more structure, more stability in that rotation. And then you got a couple other pieces, right, for the 5, the 6, the 7 spot. You got Johnny Brito, you got Vasquez as well. I really like what the Padres, all of a sudden, they hadn't really done too much this offseason, minus a couple of relievers in Yuki Matsui and Woo-Suk Go. They had also brought in Wandy Peralta and De Los Santos. But they really shored up the bullpen. I like that. Let's see how Robert Suarez does in the closer role for this coming year. But overall, the bullpen, I thought, looked pretty solid. But the rotation, it's felt like, you're like, okay, all right, Darvish, Musgrove, King, okay. Let's see how that goes, right? You didn't hate the look of it, but you had some question marks with it as well, mainly the health. And King, sure, while he did look great down the stretch for the Yankees last year, you're not really sure what you're going to get with Michael King as a starter for a full season. So let's see how he does there. We got a super chat coming in. Lady Braves, 1993. How you doing? $1.99. I think AA had a better deal for Cease. I'm going to get back to that in just a little bit once I go to the White Sox point of view of things. I'm going to start with the Padres here. Lady Braves, thank you so much because that is a great point that you're bringing up right there. So, and we'll even get into the Yankees as well there. So we'll talk about the other teams eventually. So, Lady Braves, thank you so much. Now, for the Padres, all of a sudden, look at the Juan Soto trade. They brought in a bunch of pieces there, right? Michael King, you brought in Drew Thorpe. and now use Drew Thorpe in the end as a trade piece to get Dylan Cease. And all of a sudden, I think the Padres, they've had a pretty respectable offseason. I really do. I mean, when you really look at the offseason as a whole, it looked like a negative at one point, and now it looks like a positive because you have now shored up this rotation. You have shored up the bullpen. Sure, could you use maybe one more outfielder here? However, Jackson Merrill, he's looking like he belongs, and he's having himself a pretty decent spring. Top prospect. Looks like he could be on his way to winning a spot. Could they still add maybe one more outfielder? Maybe. Could you add someone like Michael Taylor, maybe Adam Duvall? That's very possible. But all of a sudden, I like the look of the Padres. I feel much better about them now than I did just yesterday, right? The Padres, I was kind of on the fence of whether or not I feel like they could be like a pretty strong wild card contender. And now I feel like they're an absolute bona fide wild card contender because you have a deep rotation, deep bullpen. And even when you go back to the move with Schilt, with the defense moving Xander Bogaerts to second base, that I think is a productive move, without having to even, go out there and spend money or make a trade. I think they made themselves better by moving Xander Bogaerts over to second base and Ha-Seong Kim at shortstop, where he belongs, in my opinion. He's the better defensive shortstop. Say what you will of Xander Bogaerts getting paid all this money to be a second baseman. At the end of the day, though, the Padres, they are better for it. So I think the Padres all of a sudden look like a pretty strong team in the National League. I really like the way this team looks. I love the way this rotation looks. And just focusing in on Dylan Cease just a little bit more. Now, a lot of people right off the bat, I already know this is going to happen. You got a lot of people that are going to dive right to the ERA from last year. And they're going to be like, what? Dylan Cease, this guy's overrated. This guy's no good because he had a 4.58 ERA. Well, as I've said with Dylan Cease all offseason, the advanced numbers look a little better, right? On a bad team last year, not a great defense, a 3.72 FIP. That's pretty solid, all right? So I expect better numbers from Dylan Cease moving forward. Still has some of the best stuff in the game. When you look at the stuff plus numbers, the strikeout per 9 still looks solid to me. The walks maybe a little high, but I mean, 3 starts, 8 1/3 innings so far. He's looking pretty solid, right? I know it's a very small sample size, but strikeout to walk ratio does look improved. So far, I know it's spring training, I'm just saying, but that's something I would imagine he's worked on this offseason. He's going to be focusing on keeping those walks down, but the strikeout still looks strong. Overall, Dylan Cease, to me, he is an excellent number 3 heading into this rotation. I mean, come on now. Like Dylan Cease, a lot of people have been, calling him even an ace this offseason, and now he's projected to be the 3. I think it's fantastic. I love this move. I think the Padres, they have themselves quite a good rotation here, and I think they're definitely going to be a wild card contender. Will they compete for this division? I don't know, but this is also a move that I think the Padres needed to make. It almost feels like not even a response to the Dodgers. It feels more like a response to what the Giants have been doing lately. The Giants, they've been making several moves. And the Padres, like I said, they had made a couple of moves to the bullpen. Nothing crazy by any means, respectable moves, but not where the Giants were when it came to the level of moves they were making. So overall, I think the Padres, to me, I think they responded more to the Giants because the Dodgers are the Dodgers at the end of the day. I mean, come on. It's impossible to compete with what the Dodgers did this past offseason. But to what the Giants did, yeah, I think that's a pretty competitive offseason compared to all the moves the Giants made. Would I say the Giants had the better offseason than the Padres? Yeah, maybe by a little bit, because they did make several moves that I really liked. However, I think the Padres made a bigger, impactful move at the end of the day. All right, the Giants, they made a lot of, like, Jung-Hoo Lee, Soler, Chapman, right? They improved a lot of different aspects of their team. And they did add Robbie Ray. You signed Jordan Hicks. he's a question mark to me still. I think he still needs to go out there and prove he can handle being a starter. But to me, when it comes to impact, I think Dylan Cease to the Padres, that's on another level to me. I think that's huge. And another thing with Dylan Cease, too, is he's been quite the workhorse, right? If you go back to 2021, he has pitched at least 165 innings a season. That's something the Padres need. They absolutely need that. So when I'm looking at the rotations here, yeah, I think you have to give a leg up on the San Diego Padres right now when it comes to the rotation compared to the Giants. And of course, when you're looking at the lineup, you still got all these bats. I think Fernando Tatis Jr. is in store for a huge year. We'll see how that goes. I think the Padres are looking really solid, in my opinion. Now, let's move on to the White Sox point of view. And I have not forgotten about that super chat, Lady Braves, $1.99 there. So I'll get to that in just a second. But let's take a look at what the Padres sent back. Drew Thorpe, Jairo Iriarte, Samuel Zavala, Steven Wilson. Starting off with Drew Thorpe. We're going to be getting with Drew Thorpe, a guy that's going to throw a good amount of strikes. He's not going to have the most velocity. Could maybe the White Sox do something there, maybe try and get a little bit more velocity out of him. Sure, but I wonder pretty much with him, he's going to be a guy that's just going to throw a ton of strikes, and he's going to mix in a nasty changeup with the strike throwing. So I think Drew Thorpe, the velocity, I could see, being worrisome to a lot of people because today's game, velocity, it matters. In today's game, where compared to the, the 90s, the 2000s, even the 2010s, right? Early 2010s at least. Yeah, those guys, Drew Thorpe could live in that time. But in today's realm, will that velocity play? We'll see. He does have some pretty good stuff to go along with it, mostly the changeup. But he does also have a good mix of pitches as well. I think Thorpe could end up being a pretty solid back end of the rotation guy. We'll see how it goes. He did really well last year in the minor leagues in Double-A over 5 starts. I mean, even without the velocity, he still got a good amount of strikeouts. In Double-A, had 13 per 9, and in High A, had 11 per 9. But the walks, he very, very good at keeping the walks down. So he had himself a very good season last year in the minor leagues. Will it translate to the major league level? We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I do like Thorpe. Is he going to end up being an ace at some point? Well, I don't know. I can't predict the future, but velocity plays, like I said, at the end of the day. Usually these aces now, you need to be throwing, upper 90s mixed with good stuff to be an ace. So we'll see. But Thorpe, in the end, I still think is a great get for the White Sox. And then you also added a guy like Jairo Iriarte, an interesting arm. Got a live arm. He's got good velocity, but he's still growing, right? Still growing into his frame. And his velocity, scouts think, is probably going to get better over time. He pairs it with a really nasty slider, has a change up there as well. Some people wonder, is he going to end up being a starter? Could he end up being a high leverage reliever at some point? We'll see. The one concern with him, though, is throwing the strikes compared to Thorpe, where this guy's kind of the opposite. Has better stuff, velocity, but has trouble keeping the walks down, right? In Double-A last year, over 13 games, 7 starts, 5 walks per 9. So, however, the FIP and the XFIP look pretty good. So, the stuff is there with Iriarte. Like I said, he's got a live arm, good fastball, good stuff. But he's still very young, 22 years old. Let's see how that goes. Samuel Zavala. This is a guy where I think he ended up being a solid outfielder. He's very young for every level he's been in. He's just a very young player, right? He started playing professionally with San Diego when he was 16, right? So that's one thing to consider. In A-ball last year, he put up some respectable numbers, hit 267, but he got on base at a very high rate with a 420, a 451. Slugging is decent, 14 homers, 20 stolen bases to go along with that. So he's going to give you a good mix of everything. He's going to give you some pop. He's going to give you some speed. He's not going to be the fastest guy out there, but he has decent speed. but his route running and his instincts in the outfield is really what helps him out there. So Samuel Zavala, I think, is a nice get for the White Sox. It's still further away than most, but I think that's a nice piece for the White Sox to add into their system. And then you pick up a guy in Steven Wilson, right? I mean, he's not really gonna, is he going to be a guy in your bullpen for the next couple of years? Sure. But I guess he could compete for the closer spot. I mean, I don't know what's going on with this White Sox bullpen. You got just random pieces all over the place. But, Steven Wilson, he's a guy that's going to give you innings out of your bullpen, right? He's under a little bit of control. He's got a few years of control. So looking at his numbers last year, they're fine. 3.91 ERA. The FIP was higher, though, at 4.52. He's got a big fastball, though. And the White Sox, they do like the velocity in the bullpen, right? Gerrit Cole, that's the big one. So let's see. Let's see how that goes, right? So we've seen the White Sox, what they can do with these high-velocity arms, right? Maybe they can work something out with him. At the end of the day, though, I think it's a nice piece to get. Yes, 29 years old. But he's under a lot of control. So I do like this trade for the White Sox. Now, getting back to the Super Chat from Lady Braves. Now, remember, go back to the beginning of the offseason. The Braves were heavily involved for Dylan Cease, right? I had been told by a little birdie that there was some stuff cooking behind the scenes. And there was names like A.J. Smith-Shawver. Bryce Elder had come up. Vaughn Grissom had come up at the time as well. I think if they had been able to get A.J. Smith-Shawver, that would have been a really nice arm to add. Compared to this, now, when I'm looking at this package for the White Sox, I think it's a good mix. I think you get some high floor with Drew Thorpe. I think you get some higher ceiling with Iriarte and Zavala. But you also get a major league piece that can help you now. I mean, how much of an impact is Wilson going to have? I don't know. But, he's a guy that can come give you some innings at the end of the day. So, in the end, I like it for the White Sox. Now, would this have been better than what the Braves could have possibly given them? I think Shawver could have easily been a piece on that table that could have gone back. That would have been, a massive upside arm to get. In the end, though, I think the White Sox, they do get a pretty nice package overall. At the end of the day, we're just going to have to see if these guys, as always with prospects, you got to see if they pan out. All right, but I do like at least that there is some diversity here and there's some variety here. That's the better word, variety. So, but then again, would I have maybe liked for the White Sox to get, even if they got one less piece, but if one of those pieces had way more upside, like Shawver, that's debatable. I think you can make that argument that maybe could have been the better route to go, right? Shawver is nasty. That guy's got stuff for days. Good velocity, too. So, whereas here, you get Thorpe. Iriarte's interesting. In the end, though, I wonder what this trade will end up looking like in a couple of years, a few years even. Does Dylan Cease end up staying with the Padres? I don't know. He's going to be a free agent in a couple of years. We'll see. I mean, the way Dylan Cease is going, every year he's putting up innings. He's got some of the best stuff in the game. He's a top-of-the-rotation guy. I would imagine he's probably going to want to test free agency unless he really likes his time in San Diego. So we'll see. I would imagine the Padres would like to get an extension going. But, hey, they've tried this before with some guys. Juan Soto most notably. I mean, that's a different case. Dylan Cease is not Juan Soto. But, I don't know. I just see Dylan Cease end up going out onto the free agent market in a couple of years. So, could this help the Padres possibly win a World Series in the next couple of years? I think that's a good question to ask. Does this put the Padres over the hump when it comes to competing for a World Series? At the end of the day, you just got to make it. If you make it to the playoffs, anything can happen. I think if this Padres team gets to the playoffs, anything can happen at that point. At the end of the day, we saw the Diamondbacks last year barely get in. And as long as you got a couple of guys that can help lead the way, help lead the rotation, we saw with the Rangers too. They basically rode the backs of Eovaldi and Montgomery. The Diamondbacks, they rode the backs of Gallen and Kelly, Fott stepping up in there as well. If the Padres get into the playoffs, I think you have to be weary of this team because they got a solid 1-2-3 punch if they're healthy and they're all good to go. And then you got someone like King in there as well. That's the beauty of having Michael King because he's obviously shown he can be flexible. And if you get to the Padres and you go, game 1 like Musgrove or Darvish, and game 2 Cease, and then game 3, whoever didn't start the first 2 games, and then Michael King can be a guy that can come out of the bullpen if your first guy is faltering a little bit, all right, that starts that game, maybe he's a little rocky through the first couple of innings, you can turn to Michael King. So I think the Padres, they are well built for the playoffs here. I like this team in the playoffs. They just have to get there because we all know how competitive it is in that National League. So we'll also see how this bullpen is. I do like that you added some depth with Matsui and Woo-Suk Go and Peralta and Santos. So there's a lot more depth here. So all of a sudden, the depth of the Padres is strong. And I think that could definitely carry them through the regular season this year. And we saw them make a run right at the end of the season last year. They ran off like 8 straight wins or whatever it was or something like that. And they were making some noise. I think they climbed to within like 3 games. Or I can't remember exactly, but they have the talent here. We'll see how this goes. If I'm going to pick a winner of this trade, I don't know. It's because you just never know at this point with the prospects, and maybe the White Sox can do something with these guys. I would have liked if the White Sox had gotten something a little more with more upside at the end of the day. Even if you wanted to go, looking at the Yankees, but then again, the Yankees, they didn't want to give up Spencer Jones, so that's a different animal in itself. So if you were able to get a piece like Spencer Jones, though, where the upside is there, where he could be an impact bat for years, that's what I'm talking about. Like with the White Sox, I feel like they weren't really able to get a piece like that, where you feel like you got a few fringe guys, while they are respectable and they are good pieces, they just don't have that one big piece, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this ends up working out very well for the White Sox, but I'm just glad the White Sox did something in the end. I'm just glad they made the move because it was so silly, in my opinion, for the White Sox to hold on to Dylan Cease. It made no sense to me because his value was only going to go down. As soon as if he took that mound for the White Sox on opening day, that value was going to start going down. Just like when you drive a car off the lot, same exact thing. It made no sense to hang on to him, but I can at least respect that they held out as long as they could. Because, Chris Getz probably thought this at the same time too. Just like Scott Boras is saying, guys go down, injuries happen. But it's funny with the Padres because they weren't one of these teams where they had a major injury or have had, some injuries this offseason, like Scherzer with the Rangers and the bad back. The Padres, no one saw the Padres doing this. Everyone was looking at, the Yankees and even the Rangers over the last couple of days. Weeks even, Dylan Cease with the Yankees, that's been something that's been going on for a while. So I'm glad that the Padres pulled this off. This is not a team I was expecting for Cease to land on, but isn't that how it always goes? I feel like it always happens that way. Anytime you feel like a guy is a sure thing to go to point A or point B, and some other random team just pops up and gets it done, where you're like, huh? What? How did this happen? right? I feel like even in basketball, like a good example, like Damian Lillard going to the Milwaukee Bucks. It was like, what? Everyone thought he was going to go to the Heat, and all of a sudden the Bucks make a deal. So I like it for the Padres. I'm not quite sure about the White Sox at this point. Now, let's talk about the Yankees. Okay, so we obviously got some big news today. This was going to be my lead story for tonight. However, we got this news instead. But let's get to the Gerrit Cole news. Gerrit Cole projected to miss at least a month, could be 2 months. However, he is going to be visiting one of the top surgeons in the land, in LA. Let's see what he ends up saying. My guess is he's going to him. Let me make sure I have the name right. It is Dr. Neil Elektrachi. I think I'm saying that right. But a guy that's very notable in the field, very well regarded. Makes me think he's just going to him for peace of mind. He's getting a whole ton of opinions here, which sounds like a Gerrit Cole kind of a thing to do. Gerrit Cole, it comes off to me just like this super analytical guy, and he just wants to cover all his bases, and I think that's what he's doing here. I think that's what the Yankees are doing here too. So I think all of them are like, okay, we need to just go see as many people as we can. So overall, though, yeah, this is a bummer for the Yankees. And to me, this is a bummer to the game of baseball. I made a tweet earlier today. Gerrit Cole, in my opinion, is the best pitcher in the game, at least as of right now. He's been a workhorse. If you go back to 2017, he leads in innings pitched since 2017. He's been an absolute workhorse with some of the best stuff in the game, some of the best results in the game. Go check out Stark Raving Sports. He actually put out a video going back to that 2019 run that Gerrit Cole had with the Astros, where he went, what was it, like 16-0 from like May to the end of the season. He was phenomenal. It was lights out. It was legendary. And then you've seen what he's done in the last couple of years, last year especially, winning a Cy Young. So, yeah, I think it's not just a bummer for the Yankees, but I think this is the bummer for baseball fans, because at the end of the day, this is one of the top pitchers in the game. This is like if you lose, go back to the late 90s, if you lose Randy Johnson or Pedro Martinez in the middle of their prime, right? It's that same kind of level where when Pedro and Randy Johnson, when they were pitching, Clemens, even guys like that, when those guys took the mound, you wanted to watch SportsCenter the next morning. Even if they weren't on your favorite team, if you saw Pedro Martinez was pitching or Roger Clemens was pitching on ESPN the next morning, looking at the highlights while you're eating your bowl of cereal, you were paying attention to what they were doing, right? You looked at what their numbers were in the box score, right? 7 innings, probably, 10 strikeouts, 12 strikeouts. Solid performance from one of those guys. Gerrit Cole is one of those guys today. And when he's not pitching, I think it's a bummer for the game. So for the Yankees, though, they did get a pretty good sign today with Carlos Rodon. Carlos Rodon looked pretty good against my Red Sox today. Tristan Casas did take him deep. That's all I'm going to say. But Carlos Rodon overall, whatever, it's spring training. I'm just kidding. Rodon did look very good today. I think his stuff looked a lot better today. He just felt like he had a little bit more of a pep in his step in his start. So that's a good sign for the Yankees. However, if we're looking at this Yankees rotation now, it's iffy. It's iffy without Cole, right? Rodon, I would imagine, is going to be your opening day guy. Stroman is probably going to be game two. Probably going to go Schmidt for 3. I would imagine Cortez will be the 4. And then you go with some other guys in the 5 spot. Now, you got some other guys down in the minor leagues, right, as depth guys. Remember, they just gave up a whole lot of pieces for Juan Soto. It'd be, I saw even some people today saying, man, the Yankees, I think, would love to have Michael King right now. Yeah, they would. I mean, Michael King would be huge for this rotation right now. But you got Juan Soto, so you can't really complain. But in the 5 spot, you got Clayton Beeter right here. But you got some other guys like Luis Gil. You got Yoendrys Gomez. You got Will Warren, who I think is an interesting piece. I think could be a guy that could come up this year and give you some starts and some productive innings. Has some pretty good stuff, pretty decent velocity. Clayton Beeter is, one of these guys too. So in the end, what do the Yankees do? Where do they pivot? Where do they go from here? Do they go to someone like Blake Snell? We've talked about this many times on this channel. Blake Snell, is he the guy that you pivot to? I don't think so. I have never felt, once they moved on to Stroman, I just felt like that was the nail in the coffin for Blake Snell. No matter how many times Snell and the Yankees kept coming up in the news, I just didn't see it. I didn't see it happening because it's too much money. You're going to be paying not just his salary, you're going to be paying the taxes on top of it. You're going to have to give up a draft pick. And then, if it ends up being like a deal where he opts out, it's like, are you really going to pay basically, like if he gets 35, for the first season, $35 million, and then you end up paying the luxury taxes on top of that. So you're going to be paying a way more, right? At least 20 to 30 million more probably in just taxes because of him. And then you're giving up a draft pick. I mean, that's a lot for 1 year of Blake Snell, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, in my opinion, financially at least, to go get Blake Snell, right? It's like going to get a PS5. You know what a good analogy is? That was like going to get a PS5 during the pandemic years where there were no PS5s anywhere and people were, selling them on eBay for like $1,000 or whatever it is. That's basically Blake Snell right now. Like, you're just gonna have to shell out way more than you should for Blake Snell, right? So I don't see Snell happening. Now, Dylan Cease is off the board, so the Yankees can't go there. And remember, they had been connected with Cease even like a couple of weeks ago. Even maybe longer than that, right? Go back to the beginning of the offseason. I think the Yankees had popped up with Cease at one point even then. Where do the Yankees go from here? In my opinion, if I'm a guessing man, if I'm a betting man, I think the Yankees actually stand pat. I think they actually roll with what they have. They lean on these guys. They're counting on a Carlos Rodon bounce back. In my opinion, he is looking healthy, looked good today. Stroman's a guy that he's going to come in. He's going to give you his starts. He's going to give you his innings. Schmidt, they're looking for a step forward from him. Cortez, they're looking for a bounce back from him as well. I think they stand pat, and I think they lean on the depth guys to round out that rotation. Does it end up being just one guy? Does it end up being Beeter, Gill, Gomez? Probably not. I would imagine it's probably going to end up being like a rotation of guys. Some days probably ends up being maybe a bullpen day, right? That's how I see the Yankees doing it until they actually know what is happening with Gerrit Cole. I think if Gerrit Cole ends up missing more time, let's go back to this in about a month. We're going to get an update on Gerrit Cole eventually. He's going to end up playing catch. He's going to end up throwing. That's going to be big. People are going to be paying attention to that. But if he does not respond well to when he ramps things up and he ends up missing possibly the rest of the season or whatever ends up happening, that's when I think the Yankees, they'll re-engage. They'll look at how everything is going. Obviously, they're going to analyze the market again. They're going to look at the standings, see where teams are at. Maybe some teams have fallen out of it. That's when I think they go back to the drawing board. And that's when they think about what moves they could make. Right now, I think they're going to play it safe, be patient. All right. What I mean by play it safe is don't go out there and just go give up prospects or just drop a bunch of cash. Right. I think they just stick with what they have and they just go from there. Then once they get more information, that's when they figure things out and maybe go for another piece. Or if they were to make a move now, if the Yankees were to go out onto the trade market again, or if they were to go out maybe into free agency, maybe someone like Michael Lorenzen could make some sense. Yeah, you're going to end up having to pay him something, and yeah, you're going to end up having to pay more in luxury tax, but that is a guy who can give you some innings. So maybe they go that route. Someone cheaper. I keep seeing the Trevor Bauer calls. I keep seeing him out there. I mean, pitching wise, yeah, Trevor Bauer would make a ton of sense for this team, but you got to look at the public relations. It just seems like teams, they don't really want to deal with it. They don't really seem they're up for it, right? That guy was striking guys out against the Dodgers, though. The minor leaguers, that was something. I think he struck out like 5 in like 2 innings or 3 or something like that. I don't know, but it doesn't matter because teams they just don't want to deal with it, right? Who knows? I don't think Trevor Bauer is going to the Yankees. I think someone like Michael Lorenzen makes sense. Or you could go onto the trade market. Seems like the Guardians at this point are probably going to hang on to Shane Bieber until at least the deadline. They're going to reassess where they're at then. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to a Shane Bieber trade, the injuries over the last couple of years and the lack of control of Shane Bieber, is going to be a free agent after this coming season. That hurts his value. That hurts his trade value. So the Guardians are not going to get a whole bunch for him at the end of the day. So Bieber's a guy that I think ends up staying put, and I think they would rather hang on to Bieber too to show that he is healthy, and that way, sure, his value will probably go down a little bit, obviously, as you get closer to the deadline, because you get less control as time goes on of Shane Bieber. So, but a good, healthy Bieber, maybe a team ends up giving up an extra prospect or a higher prospect in a trade at the deadline for Bieber. So I think the Guardians end up hanging on to him. Maybe someone like Paul Blackburn, right? Like a cheaper alternative, a guy, he had some health stuff last year, but could come in, maybe do something there. I could see a lower level trade like that for the Yankees at this point. Cease was a guy, I think they were trying everything they could without having to give up Spencer Jones. I think they were probably thinking of guys like maybe even Chase Hampton, Peraza, maybe even someone like Will Warren in there. So I think those guys, if I were to guess, I would think those guys were possibilities. But the White Sox, they probably had their heart set on Spencer Jones, and the Yankees didn't want to budge. So in the end, could that end up being a good move for the Yankees in the end, right? Maybe some of these, maybe Spencer Jones ends up being an impact bat for them over the next couple of years. So we'll see. Sometimes it's the lack of move that ends up being the best move. Now, we'll see what the Yankees end up doing. What about Texas? The Texas Rangers, they were getting in on the action in the last couple of days. They were popping up for Dylan Cease. When you're looking at this rotation, I talked about it in my over-under win total for each team. The Texas Rangers, sorry, I don't like this rotation. Not a fan. Nathan Eovaldi, I love me some Nasty Nate. He needs to get at least 156 innings this year for that option to vest. Is he going to be able to get that, though? I don't know. I don't know what to think of Eovaldi because there's always something with him year to year. Gray, that's fine. But Gray is not a number 2 to me. Heaney, fine, I guess. But I don't know. Dunning, okay. Yeah, back-end starter, fine. Bradford, he's basically replacing Martin Perez. I don't know. I just think this rotation, Cease would have looked great in that 2 spot. Eovaldi's going to be the opening day guy. There's no questioning that. Dylan Cease, game 2, that would have looked really nice, in my opinion. And the Rangers, they had pieces that they could have, they could have done. No, Wyatt Langford would not be a guy. You're looking at maybe some guys like Foscue maybe could have gone. Jack Leiter's an interesting name at the end of the day. Maybe even someone like Brock Porter, right? Someone like Owen White. The Rangers, I wonder if in the end, the Rangers or the White Sox, simply just preferred the Padres package over the Rangers. Because when I'm thinking of the Rangers, you do have some pieces here. But if I'm looking at a couple of trade proposals like the Padres and the White Sox did. And if I'm looking at the Rangers and they got a package of like Foscue and Leiter, maybe Porter or White. I don't know. Like, to me, Leiter has question marks. Foscue, I wouldn't mind getting him. That's a decent piece. But I don't know. I think I would probably take the Padres package instead of what the Rangers are probably offering. So I don't think even the Rangers would have been offering Sebastian Walcott. I don't think that. So that's what I think. In the end, I think the Padres had the better package at the end of the day. So where do the Rangers go from here? Again, they're in the same boat. Money has been a bit of an issue, though. But they have been doing these, 1-year deals. Could that maybe be a landing spot for someone like Lorenzen? We'll see. Could maybe they go after Trevor Bauer? Who knows? Probably not. I would imagine that's probably not going to happen. So, I don't know. But the Rangers, they're in an interesting position, in my opinion. And I think they probably end up standing pat. Maybe they make a lower tier move. Maybe a trade. They're in the same position as the Yankees, in my opinion. But it's funny because they both have money issues, but in completely different ways. The Rangers, they're lacking the TV money in the future to where they're probably not looking to make any long-term investments, while the Yankees, they have just spent too much money, right? So they're in like completely opposite boats. So I wonder if either of these teams really go make a big impact move at this point, unless it's a trade. But I don't really see it. Now, what could this mean for these two free agents, Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery? I don't know. I would think now that Cease is off the board, because you got to remember, like I said earlier, the reports, the Yankees preferred Dylan Cease to Blake Snell, according to Bob Nightingale not too long ago. That's what I wonder. Once, Snell, like maybe the money they were asking for, they were like, we'd rather just go trade for Dylan Cease because we get him for at least 2 guaranteed years. He's not going to be as expensive. He's proven to be year to year more consistent with his innings. So I could see why teams preferred Dylan Cease. Now, this opens the door for Snell, in my opinion. It almost feels like maybe these teams were waiting for Dylan Cease to get figured out. And now that he has, I think this could open the gates for Blake Snell. I think this could open the gates for Montgomery. The way I see it happening, I see Snell probably going first, and then Montgomery at some point figures it out. I think it's an absolute shame that these guys are still on the market. I don't think Boris has helped them out at all this offseason. I don't think they've helped themselves out. But at the end of the day, your agent, that's the guy you trust. I've been seeing people out there saying, hey, at the end of the day, Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, they're the ones that they agree or not agree to a contract. But this is why they hired Boris, right? Because at the end of the day, what is Boris presenting these guys in terms of contracts? It comes down to him. So in my opinion, I see where people are coming from saying this is on Montgomery and Snell. I disagree. I think it's on Boris at the end of the day because that's the guy you are going to be paying. Because remember, he gets a cut of the check. You are paying him to get this done for you. You shouldn't have to. Yes, I could see it being respectable, right? Like, okay, Scott, we got to get this done, right? But again, this is Scott Boras. This is why you're paying him the commission of whatever check ends up getting handed out. So that's what I think. But I think Blake Snell probably ends up getting moved first because at the end of the day, he is the Cy Young winner. He is the guy that is going to give you very good stuff. Snell is going to have the higher upside. Montgomery is going to have the higher floor. So I think Snell is the one, especially in today's game where velocity and stuff plays. Snell is going to be the guy that I think teams would like to land. Whereas Montgomery, he's the guy that's going to be Mr. Consistency. He's going to give you the innings. He's not going to give you the stuff or the velocity like Snell, but he's going to be a very good above average guy for the middle of the rotation. Snell is more of a guy for the top of the rotation. So unfortunately for Montgomery, I think he's going to be standing pat for a little bit. But now that Cease is off the board, I do think Snell is going to end up getting moved because that's a big roadblock, right? Because again, I'll say it one more time. Cease, I think, was the preferred option because he was cheaper, 2 years of control, and still gives you very good stuff. So it's like Dylan Cease was the better bang for the buck, right? That's what I think it is with Cease and Snell. So hopefully this gets something moving with Blake Snell. Hopefully this gets something moving then with Jordan Montgomery. It's crazy. It's crazy. We have a super chat. Bob Nightingale just tweeting the trade is official. Jimmy Productions, $1.99. Blake Snell will sign with the Giants. I mean, if they end up signing Blake Snell, I mean, what an offseason. Could you imagine the Giants actually counter what the Padres just did and they go sign Blake Snell? That'd be crazy, right? Because I'm looking at this as the Padres, they just countered the Giants. Could you imagine if the Giants now counter the Padres and go get Blake Snell? That'd be crazy. I personally think Blake Snell is going to end up with the Angels. That's what I think personally. There's been, if you go back to like the last few days over the weekend, there was stuff heating up with Snell and the Angels, right? There was a lot of like cryptic stuff being put out there. I don't know. You were just seeing Angels stuff. I think Buster Olney said something about Blake Snell and the Angels. So I do think that's where he ends up landing. It just makes the most sense to me. We'll see. Montgomery, I still think he's going to be with the Red Sox in some way, shape, or form. I don't know. I'll talk about the Red Sox in a little bit. Jimmy Productions, another super chat. The Phillies are winning the World Series. I don't know. I think the Phillies have done well in keeping their team together, but have they gotten better? And are they going to have enough big pieces at the deadline to be able to make a move? I don't know. I feel like if the Phillies want to do something impactful at the deadline, you might have to part with someone like Mick Abel. I don't know, man, because I feel like the Phillies have not gotten better. Yes, it's very good. You kept your core. You have Wheeler now and Nola for the next several years, but they haven't done anything else, right? I don't know. Like, to me, you got beat by the Diamondbacks in the playoffs. You lost in 7 games, and you didn't do anything to get better from that. At the end of the day, the Phillies lost. And all you did, basically, the only addition was Whit Merrifield. I don't know. Jimmy Productions, $4.99. Snell was in San Francisco the other day on Sunday on his Instagram story. Was he really? That's interesting. I feel like Snell is like having fun with all of this. We'll see. It's possible. Maybe there was some kind of a meeting there. Maybe there was even a meeting with the Angels at some point. Who knows? Who knows? I think that would be a huge move for the Giants if they end up doing that. So, speaking of the Angels, also the Mets have been involved on JD Martinez, and the Marlins have been involved as well. I think the Angels could make sense for JD Martinez. I don't know. There's something in the lineup. There's a bit of a log jam in this lineup with the Angels. Like, you got a lot of pieces, but I don't know, man. I don't know. The Angels, at the end of the day, it's like, are they even going to be good enough? Like, I don't know, man, because I'm looking here, because if you add JD Martinez, that's really going to clog it up. Does Drury end up just playing second? Does Rengifo end up just being more of a utility guy at that point? That's what I would think would be. I do think a bat like Martinez would really go a long way. And if you could get Martinez and Snell, I think that's pretty decent to at least keep you in the game, right? To keep you at least in the conversation of maybe getting a wild card. And we'll see. I would love JD Martinez for the Marlins. You lost Jorge Soler. I've been saying this for a while. I said this I feel like for so long now. JD Martinez and the Marlins make a lot of sense. He's a Florida guy. He grew up near Miami. Then it'd be great, right? A 1-year deal, but are the Marlins going to give enough money? However, the Mets, and they've also been engaged, I guess, with JD Davis, who was let go by the Giants, which I'm not surprised about that happening. But, JD Davis, I'm thinking like, I don't know. JD Davis, Andy Martino put out like the Mets are more interested in a reunion with JD Davis because he has a glove. Huh? I mean, I don't know. I don't think you need that. Like, what do you, JD Davis's glove is not great. What? You have Beatty at third. If you're going to put JD Davis somewhere, it's going to be on the corners, right? I don't know. I think you're pretty set there. I think they really want to go with the youth. JD Davis doesn't make sense with a reunion with the Mets for me. I don't know. So I'm like wondering, Andy Martino, I think his game is literally anytime there is anything positive, Andy Martino just flies in and he just feels like he has to get his word in. Like he has to just say something different. I swear, I don't know. Like it just feels like he always does that, and it's always positive. It's always something negative. It just feels like that's what he does. I don't know. Strike blitz. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't see. You say he makes perfect sense for the Mets. I think it's fine. Like, but it's where are you gonna play him? Like, I guess you could DH him, right? I guess he could be that righty bat. But to me, I want JD Martinez instead of JD Davis. I don't know. If I'm going to add a right-handed bat, I'm going Martinez all day. Yeah, sure, Martinez. Yeah, you can go play some... Or Davis. I keep getting the JDs mixed up. Davis, yeah, he can go play some other positions, but I don't know. I want the better bat, and I would want JD Martinez. So I see what you're saying, though. I see what you're saying. JD Davis is a good fit. But I'm looking at it, what's going to make your team better. I just think JD Davis basically, he's just on the team, but he's not really bringing you any higher, right? He's just there, right? Where JD Martinez actually comes in and you turn your head and go, oh, JD Martinez is here. That's pretty good, right? But JD Davis walks in, you're like, oh, okay. All right, cool. All right, JD Davis. All right, cool, sweet. JD Martinez though, nah, you're feeling a little good, right? Feeling a little good. We got one more story, and that is Lucas Giolito, and he actually did not end up getting Tommy John surgery. He actually got a procedure where it's the same procedure that Trevor Story got. And I think Rick Hill got not too long ago as well, where it's repairing the UCL in the elbow, but with like a brace. It's a newer thing these days compared to Tommy John. You're starting to see more of these guys go with the brace procedure because it's less time to come back. So a lot of people were fearing Lucas Giolito ends up missing the entire season. I feel like he probably ends up missing the entire season. I don't know. I just feel like when you're looking at like a 5 to 6 month recovery, I don't know. But then I would imagine the Red Sox, they probably want him for next year. So maybe I could see him making like a couple of minor league starts at the end. Maybe he gets a start or two. Now, Rich Hill, when he got it back in 2020, he got the procedure done in October of 2019, and then he came back, I believe, like the first couple of months of the season. So Rich Hill did come back, right? And he ended up pitching a bit. I don't know. Lucas Giolito, though, I think this is a different case. I think the Red Sox, there's more money invested here, and I wonder if they end up taking it just slow with him and they just give him all the time he needs. I still think he ends up missing time. I think there could be a chance you see him maybe September, maybe get a few starts at the end of the year just to, say, hey, I made it, right? We'll see. We'll see. But on my over-under win total video from the other day, I had a win total of 78.5 wins for the Red Sox, according to BetUS. That is our sponsor here. And I actually did take the under of the 78.5 wins. And really quick, let me actually pull up here. Of course, my stream deck is not working, but let's actually pull up BetUS here. They have a great deal going on right now. Your first 3 deposits, you get up to a 125% bonus. And just looking at the regular season win total for the Red Sox, and I won't dive too long into this. I know Giraffe Neck Robbie is not everyone's favorite. So, sharing the screen. And so actually it's 77.5 wins. Sorry, I think I said 78 a second ago. But right now, I'm feeling under right now. I just don't think the Red Sox really have the innings here. I think they could end up being a surprise. Again, you're kind of looking at a different game here with the Red Sox because you got new people in these positions. Like Dave Bush, he just wasn't a good fit as the pitching coach. All right, the Red Sox pitching last year just fell all over the place. Andrew Bailey, though, I'm a big Bailey guy. So without Giolito's innings, where you're looking at 170, 180 innings, you have to remember here, that is a lot of innings that you have to figure out how to make up, right? Cutter Crawford, at the end of the day, we don't know what Cutter Crawford is over a full season. I'm excited about him. I'm definitely excited about him, but at the end of the day, we don't know, right? So it's as of right now, like if you're a betting man right now, you don't know what someone like Cutter Crawford is going to do over a full season. Brian Bayo, we need that slider to get a little better, right? You got the extension, great, but we need to see a bit more of a pitch mix from Brian Bayo for him to really be that top of the rotation guy. Pivetta, I think Pivetta is going to give you the innings. Houck, though, question mark, has looked pretty good this spring, but can he take that next step? Again, we don't know at this point, right? And Garrett Whitlock, I think, is a bullpen guy. I don't think Whitlock should be in this rotation. He scares the crap out of me in this rotation. So without Giolito here, it's iffy. It's very iffy, and I'm sorry, I got to keep beating the drum every chance I get, but Jordan Montgomery, if you add him, then I think the Red Sox, because when you lose those innings, I'm a big innings guy, because when you don't have those, you got to figure, it's like you're playing patchwork on the go, right? It's like when you have a cup or like a bowl or something and it's got holes and you're like having to cover up the holes with your hands. That's what this is right now. And like the Red Sox, they need something that's going to plug those holes. Maybe those holes those plugs end up popping out, but at least they are plugged up for now with someone like Jordan Montgomery. So we'll see. I think he still makes the most sense for them. At this point, I'm very curious to see what ends up happening with these two. So, I don't know. It's interesting. But everyone, think I'm going to start wrapping this up here. Did want to just come on here live tonight. We have been struggling a little bit with this algorithm lately, and I think we got up to around 350 tonight. Jim, he went live to react to this. I saw he had a massive scream over on Ball Cap. So, Jim, if you are watching this, man, he absolutely hit on that stream. So, good for him there. And but, yeah, we have been struggling a little bit with this algorithm lately. So, if you can on the way out, hit that like button for me. It really does help more than you think. Share the show if you can. Make sure that bell is turned on. Subscribe if you are new. Now that I'm all back home and everything, I am ready. If Snell is going to sign, if Montgomery is going to sign, I'm ready. I'm ready for it. I was not ready for this one tonight. And, hey, it is what it is at the end of the day. But make sure the notifications are turned on. Do got some, not announcements, but at some point over the next week or so, I do want to talk about this upcoming season and what plans are for this upcoming season and goals for the channel. for this upcoming season. So make sure you're tuning in. Would love to talk about that with all of you at some point in the next week. But everyone, thank you for stopping by tonight. Greatly appreciate it. We're just under our goal for tonight. So if 10 more of you can hit that like button, I'll love you forever. Everyone, go have yourself a good rest of your evening. Unless maybe Blake Snell wants to sign tonight. Maybe. Could that happen? I don't know. That would be great if it did. But be on the lookout. I will be ready if we got to go live. Have yourself a great night, everyone. And I'll talk to you next time.